Good evening and welcome to the Writer's Block. I'm your host, John Ronan, and as you know now, because we are well into our 36th season, I talk to writers about their craft, what they're working on today, what they've accomplished in the past, what they're planning for the future. It is a slightly wider scope than that, however. We have had on painters, we've had on actors, we've had on at least 2 sculptors. So if you have an idea for an artist or writer who might be a good fit for the Writer's Block, watch for our address at the end of the show. We would love to get your suggestions. I also want to remind you that the Writer's Block and all the other original programming that comes out of 1623 Studios is a result of cable access television. It is a wonderful community asset, important to everybody on Cape Ann, and because we're eventually on YouTube with all these episodes, important to everybody who has the link to our past shows. So stick with cable, stick with the Writer's Block. Thank you. Tonight, I'm happy to say we do have a writer, a novelist by the name of L.H. Finigan, who has written a novel called Summer People, and I can vouch for the excellence of this novel because I've read through it twice, and it's very good. Stands up. Summer People by L.H. Finigan. Welcome to the show.
Hi, John. Good to see
Linda. I'll call you Linda
Yes,
for the program.
Right.
Welcome to the show. Can you tell us, our audience, because you've been on the show before, just remind our audience about your background, where you're from originally and where you went to school.
I grew up outside of New York City on Long Island, mostly. And then I went to school up in Buffalo, New York, at the State University there, which had, at the time, an excellent English department. So I was an English major. Also was the editor-in-chief of the paper by my senior year. I worked in the student newspaper all my 4 years.
What was the name of the paper?
The Spectrum.
Spectrum.
The Spectrum. And then after a few years, I went to Washington, worked for a college press service there, and eventually went to graduate school in University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And at that point, I wanted to be a film director. So I was studying
a film director.
Radio, television, and motion pictures. Made a few short films, and then decided I really didn't have the hustle of a film director, and I instead went back. Well, yeah, I've always been a writer, so I decided I would write novels instead.
I think film world seems to be a pretty hectic career.
Yeah, and it would not have been for me. I mean, I know that, and as certainly as it's evolved over the years, it certainly was not for me.
I think sometimes I went into poetry because I just like to be alone
and
quiet.
Yeah, right.
How long has it been since you got up to Cape Ann?
45 years.
45
yeah,
years.
1980. Moved up here.
And you're in Gloucester?
I'm in Rockport.
Where are you, Rockport?
I lived briefly in Gloucester.
Well,
for a couple of years, yeah. I lived on in the fort.
Well, you've been on Cape Ann for many decades.
Yes, yeah.
Tell us when you first thought of Summer People and how long it took to get from the idea, the inspiration, to having the book in your hand.
Well, oddly, it started with one short story, and it was about an older woman named Emma Nolan. And that story, from the very beginning, I knew I was going to title Summer People, because it's about an older woman who's living in an older house. And there's a rental, at first it's not a rental cottage, but then it becomes a rental cottage next door.
Yes.
And it's her interactions and experiences of all the people who come over the seasons, for a week, and what they, how they carry on.
Cottage motif runs through the book. All these strange people come. So it was how many years before?
I mean, I've really lost track. That short story was a really, really long time ago. And then it took some time after that where one day I thought, it would be interesting to write about the people who subsequently own the house after the older woman passes on, and also about the other people who come through the cottage over the years. And then I just started quickly sketching out like who those people were, and they came to me really pretty quickly. I knew Toby right away, and you know, I wasn't. They went through a lot of name variations. I don't know. I guess maybe as a poet you don't do that, but I name people, and I think no, you know, years go by, and I think no, that's the wrong name. So eventually they landed on Catherine and Tom, and I thought, yes, that's right. They feel like Catherine and Tom to me.
I like it when people describe a long process of the creative process, a long time for the creative process, because often younger people, but often just people who aren't acquainted with the writing process itself, think, oh, yeah, I thought about it on Monday and I finished it by the end of the month.
Right.
And it doesn't work that way.
Well, for some young people it does. I hate reading those stories.
It doesn't work if you want good art.
If you want, right,
if you want quality.
Yeah. Right.
So,
and in all those years, I was also working on other things. Like I have written now 5 novels, and I've written like, I don't know, maybe 40 short stories and 10-minute plays. So when I say it took a long time, it did take a long time, but I wasn't working on it nonstop the whole time.
And then there's also life gets in the way.
Oh, life, yeah.
You know, that stuff.
Right, right.
Tell us about what happens in the novel.
Well, it begins with a young couple who meet quite by chance on the steps of Harvard Library while he's a graduate student there. And, you know, they kind of fall quickly, madly, deeply in love, and it's almost like a love at first sight thing. But then it slowly, and not so slowly, it becomes clear that he has some mental challenges, and but she's already, you know, all in at that point. And
and you find that out quickly in the book. This book really moves along. I like that. You know, there's not any discursive stuff you want to skip.
Right.
It's very good. Yeah, the couple is Tom and Catherine, and they refer to themselves at least once as Tomcat. Tomcat, which is a nice, clever way of putting it. And they are the main consistent characters through the whole book.
Yes.
And it's about their, well, as you mentioned, move to Bell Harbor.
Right.
And next to a cottage. And the cottage is it's like a wing on a stage set. New people.
With a changing cast of characters. Yeah.
How did you decide how did you decide Tom and Catherine's background, and then decide what sort of people they were going to encounter as summer people?
You know, it's hard to say where it came from. I always start out writing longhand, and then
you do.
I then take it to the computer. I know it's a really old school way to go. But I find there's a real connection between my brain and my hand.
And that's been backed up by a lot of studies.
So it's really almost like free thinking, you know, initially, and I just, you know, I write down things that I'm never going to use and that, you know, I throw out pretty quickly, but I'm always surprised by what just comes, you know, intuitively when you just allow yourself to. And I don't find that with a keyboard and a screen, you know, I don't find it, I mean, sometimes I get rolling on my keyboard and I think, okay, it's going now, but a lot of times it's just that white electronic, you know, blank screen. I just prefer watching my hand move along this page.
I usually write by hand first and then move it over when it's close to being finished.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna look at some of my notes here. The book moves along, as I mentioned. In the first chapter, there's love, madness, a pregnancy, terrible parents, a miscarriage, and I should say one sex scene, which really grabbed me because it's one line. It's one line. What is Bell Harbor modeled on?
Oh, well, you could see Cape Ann in it very easily. It's fictional, made up combination of Rockport and other Marblehead, other, you know, sort of vacation type seacoast retreat places that, you know, once you see them, you never want to leave or want to come back again.
Yeah.
And there's also the neighboring town, New Vernon, which is a working town and a fishing town and other things. So it's all fiction, but I certainly drew on Cape Ann as an inspiration.
And the backgrounds of Catherine and Tom are different. His parents, her parents own a deli.
In Queens, New York. Yeah.
Yes, and his parents, his terrible parents, are elite, educated. Her father's a professor, and also kind of nuts.
Yeah.
What inspired you to fill out those family backgrounds like that?
I can't say. When I was thinking about why Tom is the way he is, it came to me, well, it was his background that did it, that contributed to it. You know, he has things organic to himself too that contributed to it. But I can't really say. They just, sometimes things just come to me when I'm writing, and I think, oh yeah, that's who they were, And I really enjoyed writing Tom's mother because she's can be such a. I found her an interesting character, and I tried to let her go gently at the end, but not without a couple of stabs.
Yeah, well, they're are they nasty? Is that the proper word?
Yeah, and self-centered, and very competitive and not nurturing at all.
Self-absorbed and self
important.
Full of self-reverence. There's a reference in here. Tom is invited to go to McLean, which is a reference that people outside of this area might not recognize. Tom has to have some work done, some psychological work, some meds applied at McLean, which is what is McLean?
It's a pretty well-known psychiatric hospital in Belmont, Massachusetts. I believe it's Belmont. And very famous people, which he alludes to at some point, have also gotten themselves straightened out there, like Robert Lowell and James Taylor actually was there, and I've lost track of who else. But it's almost, I've never been there, so I can't say for sure, but I've read about it, that it's, a bit of it's an elite place to go if you're going to need help in that way.
Because of Catherine's, Tom's father and Tom himself, as opposed to Catherine, who's a poet and becomes a very dedicated and accomplished poet, whether the overall topic of the book is creativity in writing or dealing with mental illness. Is that fair to ask, or is it something I'm missing the point?
I think both of those are components, but I also saw it as a way to examine how lives intersect and how people intersect with a place, and how even seemingly minor characters and minor incidents can have a lasting impact down the years that might not be apparent at first, but when you look back on how certain things happened in life or why they happened the way they did, that it has led you somewhere where in the end it's okay that you are there. So I also saw it as that, as looking at the pattern of life over time.
I think that's important in the book because Emma Nolan is an important character, almost because in long flashbacks, almost a ghost presence, and somebody like Gavin, towards the latter part of the book, is supposed kind of a minor character, but they resonate. She keeps up a phone conversation with him, at least a phone conversation when the book ends, and so there aren't any minor characters here. They don't have as much room as some other characters, but nobody's minor. I like that about the book.
That's good to hear. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah.
That was one of your goals.
Yes, I think so. I think it was. Yeah.
So so the theme's about interaction and summer people, just that general idea of people mixing, having a good time, and then unmixing and going back to their lives.
I'm sorry.
So that's the general theme, we could say. It's about, I don't know, I'd say sociology. I hate four-syllable words. But it's about social interactions.
Yeah, I would think, and family dynamics, and memory, resilience.
I should have asked you this before we went on, but I'd like you to, can you think of a passage or two that kind of, for you, rivet the tone of the novel that you could read for us?
I did mark two passages to read. I don't know, I can pick one if we only have time for one. One is takes place at the Christmas Revels, which
With Toby?
with Toby, and then the other passage I had was Emma noticing the first summer people coming, the first summer that the summer people start coming, her observations. But the passage about Toby, that's a longer passage.
How about the Emma Nolan passage? How long is that?
That's shorter. Would you prefer I do the shorter one?
This kind of sums up the process that follows later in the book.
The people coming in the
Yes,
summer?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I'd love it. Can you read that for us?
Sure.
And excuse me, I dropped my glasses, and I'm going to drop my mic if I'm not careful. What page are we on?
We're on page 42.
Okay.
They've arrived, the first new tenants of the season, the summer people. Of course, she's a summer person too, as she's always been, though she never thinks of herself that way. She's been spending practically half the year in Belle Harbor for so long, Emma thinks of herself as a townie. She hears the laughter of a child. They have children. When Diana and her husband moved to India, taking Emma's two little granddaughters with them, she thought nothing would ever fill the hole they left behind. To lose her friend this year as well, Emma doesn't know what she'll do all summer. Much to her surprise, the rental cottage turns out to provide a steady turnover of weekly drama. It's almost like going to the movies. On holiday from their real lives, Emma imagines they're different people from who they are at home. Inhibitions loosened, constraints removed, an endless parade of human fascination. It becomes a Friday ritual, car doors thrown open, luggage carried in. If it's daylight, the fathers investigate the grill first, stopping to examine it critically, lifting the black hood to peer inside, trying controls. Snippets of conversation rise from the back deck. Some tenants keep the bathroom light on all night, others the one on the porch, which shines in Emma's bedroom window. She wonders what kind of places they've come from. Have they spent their whole lives afraid of the dark? I could go on, or I could stop there.
I think, would you like to read a bit more?
Whatever. I mean,
well, I noticed there's a break here on page 43.
Okay, I can read
down
to that.
that
Yeah.
break?
This Saturday, there's a new family eating breakfast on the deck. 2 blonde little girls and an older boy. The girls wear pink pajamas, short hair rustling in the wind. They clamber onto their father's lap. Emma remembers how Diana used to fall asleep, intently sucking her thumb. She always did this with concentrated purpose, stroking her nose for added comfort. When Emma glances out the kitchen window, both girls are descending the deck stairs, singing to themselves. Captivated, Emma awakes the next morning with a plan. What if she baked something again to deliver to the family next door? Maybe she could do so all summer, a way to stay busy, meet new people. She thinks of the visit from the welcome wagon when she was a child after her family first moved to New England. The excitement of all those free gifts, the refrigerator magnets, pot holders, keychains with can openers, the sponge that looked like a flat piece of cardboard until you dropped it in water to watch it expand into a lobster. Maybe a batch of her famous triple chocolate brownies. No, that would be too much sugar for young children. Chocolate chip oatmeal cookies. Mixing dough in the kitchen, Emma anticipates the smell of baking. So many years since she last did so. If she turned around, she could almost see Diana licking the beaters. Emma knows she shouldn't, not with her recently diagnosed diabetes, but she can't resist. She eats one of those gooey warm cookies straight from the oven. She'd forgotten the guilty pleasure.
Very nicely done. And I like the hint there about the diabetes.
Mm.
She doesn't care. She's gonna have the
Eat that
cookie
cookie.
anyway. Yes. I think these people come alive, and I like that. And they create sentiment without any sentimentality, which is a nice trick. And Emma's one of them, although she's a flashback essentially. She's not an active person through the
Throughout,
kind of,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I want to go more on style for just a minute, because there's a number of places where you have very, very nice lines, and I want to call attention to some of them. I have everything perfectly marked and
Until
immediately
you need
available.
to find it, yeah.
Well, on 111, there's a passage that has to do with Tom's mental challenges. He'd been aware of her watching him, performing for him, and he'd felt not a flicker of interest, talking about an attractive woman. Temptation was one of the human emotions now safely beyond grasp, courtesy of his meds. Now, I think that's very nicely done. And it makes slight lightness, but still respectful about the meds, because they're necessary, but everything has side effects. I think that's very nicely done. I mentioned this before we went on air. This will be famous. This will be familiar to all our audience. Toby's mother put down her pencil and fixed him with a penetrating look she could summon when needed. I thought you were on a boat with the people next door. I swam back to shore. You swam, Toby. What happened? Nothing. Something must have happened. Mom, Toby said. Everybody in our audience has heard that piece of dialogue. It's very nicely done. Here's something that's interesting to English majors. There's a stranger, and he's talking about Yeats, and admires him because he was pursuing Maud Gonne all those decades, holding fast to heartbreak. That's a very nice line. That's holding fast to heartbreak, which is easy to do. How many drafts did you go through before this was finished?
Oh, 5,000. No.
5?
No, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, so many. Yeah, I'm a real revisionist, almost to the point of painfully so. I really need to stop doing that as much as I do, but I don't know.
Good.
I concentrate on every word, and but then, at some point when I'm rewriting, I think, is this really any better to say, dispel rather than got rid of? Or I don't know. Like you can rewrite one sentence
Yes.
countless, infinite ways, and should you spend your time rewriting all the sentences of a book infinite ways, or just say that's pretty good? I think I'll. And that's eventually, where I got to with this. Like, I cannot keep, rewriting these same characters. Like, I'm not adding much new. The people are who they are.
Yes.
What happens is what happens. Just stop it and say it's finished.
Right. You have to say, at some point, you have to say, that's enough.
Yeah.
We can't go any further, even though you might have thought of 30 words. And somebody will say, why don't you use this word?
Right.
It's one you thought about for years and you rejected it.
Right. Or you go back over old drafts and you see, you know, something that you changed, I don't know how many drafts before, you just changed it back to what it had been. You should have just left it alone.
Yeah, I can tell often in my own writing, I've written past the core. And
it's getting dead now or stale or overwritten.
I think it's important to emphasize because a lot of people who start writing later in life or young students, if you mention a draft to them, they'll say, "What's that?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well, that's the first copy. You mean I got to do 2 of these?" And I've heard that many times, but it's not easy. You have to work on it. I think it was Yeats said if you work on it weeks to make a couple lines that look like they were thought of in a second, and that's true. The book ends with one word, Tom. He's died.
You gave it away.
Well,
That's okay.
We'll cut that out.
Shut your ears.
We'll edit,
Pretend you didn't hear that.
We'll edit that out. Well, you got to find out, buy the book, find out all about Tom. I wanted to mention that because it's has a nice impact right at the close. And I think that's important for a book to not just, for novels especially, not to just fade away, but he's taken care of, and a mysterious person named Gavin is sort of taken care of, and Toby's in a new relationship.
Good place.
and things are looking fairly bright for everybody, and possible. We're almost out of time.
Oh, that was quick.
It went very, very, very quickly. I want to mention the novel again by L.H. Finigan, Summer People. I'll hold it up. It's a very good book. And where is it available, Linda?
You can order it through bookshop.org, which is a great place online that supports bookstores. The bookstore in Gloucester is going to order a couple copies. I don't know if they have or not. And anywhere that you can order it through any bookstore because it's available. It's distributed through Ingram, and any bookstore can get it.
Well, this is being broadcast a little before Christmas.
Oh,
so I'm sure people
stuff
will
your
rush out.
stockings.
Linda, I want to thank you very much for being with us and sharing the background about this really fine novel, Summer People.
Thank you, John.
I want to thank you in TV land for being with us as well. If you've learned something about creation from L.H. Finigan, known here among friends as Linda, then the Writer's Block has done its job. Thanks very much for being with us, and I hope to see you again next time on the Writer's Block. Good night.